Hello, Chris Winslow here, Director for both Ohio Sea Grant and Ohio State University Stone Lab. Welcome to the next video in the 100th Anniversary Celebration Series. Today's video is going to really talk to you about the history of the lab through the lenses of the most recent three directors. But before we get into that, I want to explain the 100th anniversary in a little bit more detail. So it's not a 100th anniversary of being a lab, it is a 100th anniversary of being located on Gibraltar Island and being named Franz Theodor Stone Lab. Prior to that, the lab actually started and was referred to as the Lake Laboratory in 1895. But it wasn't on Gibraltar Island, it was in Sandusky. Stayed there for a while, actually shifted for a bit to Cedar Point, and later picked up and made home on South Bass Island in one of the hatcheries. It wasn't until 1925, yes, 100 years ago, where the island of Gibraltar was purchased by Julius Stone. Julius Stone immediately then transferred that island to the university to support the Lake Laboratory. And that's when the name changed. So instead of being the Lake Laboratory, it is now called the Franz Theodor Stone Laboratory. So we're celebrating the 100th anniversary of the lab located in its current location. But I did want to make everybody aware that the Lake Lab and that lake research has been happening since 1895.
My name is Professor Charles Herdendorf. I served as director of Stone Laboratory in the 70s and 80s. There's a dedication stone on the laboratory the year it was dedicated. It talks about the mission of the laboratory is to train people and to engage in research for the betterment of the natural resources of the lake for the benefit of the people. So that was what we focused on. What can we do to enhance and make students appreciate that mission and want to go on and spend their careers doing those kind of things. We used to have a little program called Limno Lunch for limnology, and it was here on campus, but we'd get together once a week and have little seminars. And one of those seminars was, how successful are we as students staying in the field that they're trained for? And so I just took 50 students at random, and I was really gratified that over 90% of them ended up working in the environmental field in some aspect. The thing that I wanted to emphasize was graduate research. I felt that was really the key to accomplishing these things, was to get people trained at the graduate level. I had master's level students and postdocs, and as long as the lake was ice-free, and even sometimes when it wasn't, we would begin to do monitoring. If you kept the phosphorus below 1.5 milligrams per liter, you could control the algae. We did see the lake improve dramatically over the late 70s into the early 80s. There was a big section of Lake Erie called the anoxic zone in the center, where it was dead, no oxygen on the bottom. And it covered about 80% of the lake when we started. By the time I left, it was down to 30%.
My name's Dr. Jeff Reuter. I was the director of Stone Lab for about 30 years. When I first became the director, my first focus was on women in science. I started hiring women to teach our courses, great role models for the female students. They could do the same thing I did. They could see that lady and say, that's what I want to do. And when I was a student in 1971, about 20% of our students were women. By 1990, we had more women attending Stone Laboratory than we did men. So it was a big change. We put together a special program that would allow Superior High School students to enroll in OSU courses at Stone Lab for college credit while they were still in high school. That was pretty unique and new in 1990, and a huge success story. I'm incredibly pleased that while I was the director, we were able to support either with scholarships, research assistantships, or literally with jobs, 2,200 students. And that, I'm really pleased about that, because that's, future generations. We found the first zebra mussel in Lake Erie, 1988. 1 year later, the density of zebra mussels in the western basin of Lake Erie reached well over 30,000 per square meter. Many areas were several 100,000 per square meter, and it literally became zebra mussel heaven.
My name's Chris Winslow, and I am the current director of Ohio Sea Grant and Ohio State University's Stone Laboratory. So I've been in this position since 2017, and in this position we've continued a lot of the great work that was highlighted by both Directors Herdendorf and Reuter. I'm happy to say we still give about $100,000 to $120,000 in scholarships away annually to get students up to the lab. We still do zebra mussel work on the lake, but we've also done work with round gobies and the invasive sea lamprey. Under Director Reuter's leadership, we implemented decision maker days. So 2 days every summer where we bring elected folks to the island and expose them to the research and the education programming. We want to make sure that the work we do gets into the hands of those individuals that make decisions on how we manage the watershed and the lake itself. The Ohio Department of Higher Education's Harmful Algal Bloom Research Initiative is still ongoing. We compete about $2 to $2.5 million annually for research projects to address harmful algal blooms in Lake Erie and the nutrient runoff from the landscape. Not only do we maintain this grant program, but we also host an annual HABS forecast on behalf of NOAA. So NOAA has developed tools to predict how big a bloom will be in a given year, and we are the site of that HABS forecast. So every year, in the last Thursday of June, we give a forecast to tell those that recreate on the lake and live on its shores how big they can expect a bloom to be in that year. So I'm happy to report that through the support from the state legislature, we actually have a new flex lab on the island. So a building that allows us to teach courses in that space, but also bring researchers from across the country to conduct research in those labs. In addition to that flex lab, an indoor facility, we have built a mesocosm. A mesocosm is a series of tanks that are run by pumping water from the lake and filtering it so that we can run larger scale experiments. The other thing that I'm very happy to report is we actually have an investment from the federal legislature to build a new vessel. Right now the goal is to have a vessel that's around 53, 54 feet in size, has speed that can get us to further places on the lake, and has equipment that allows us to do science that we haven't been able to do before. We're very excited about these investments and very thankful for the state and federal legislatures for investing in the island and in these assets.